Ivanka Trump, co-founder of Planet Harvest, and Hamdi Ulukaya. Is that good?
Yes.
Wow. Founder and CEO of Chobani. The two are launching a partnership to rescue, is a word we can use, but we'll explain, 1.5 million pounds of strawberries from being discarded. Ivanka, it's good to see you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Just explaining how that works, Ivanka, because,
For sure.
I mean, I can't believe one strawberry is better than another, but it is. And they have to be large, they have to be succulent, they have to look good to be enough to sell premium prices. But there's so many that are wasted.
Well, a year ago, I founded a company called Planet Harvest with a co-founder, Melissa Ackerman, who was at the time running one of the largest produce logistics companies in the United States. And we started talking about the amount of food waste that's happening at a field level. And it is atrocious. So with any given crop, roughly 40% of the harvest is just left in the field. And this is due to cosmetic spec that typically it's a millimeter too big or too small. It's such a unnoticeable difference, and it's a difference that should be celebrated. Fruit isn't supposed to be universally sized. And amazingly, there's no secondary market for produce at scale in the United States. So that translates to 40 billion pounds of wasted produce that's lost revenue for the farmers. It's nutritious food that doesn't get it onto community tables. And obviously all the negative environmental externalities. So personally, I love being contrarian by being obvious. And I said, somebody's got to take this on. So we founded Planet Harvest to address that. And a tough business to begin with. But for the farmer, that's the last moment. It's at the point where the harvest is happening where it's decided if it stays in the field or it gets taken out.
And nobody would buy this before? That was...
You know, amazingly, there was just no market for it. And when you think about it, so even if you take away the fresh aisle of the grocer, what about purees? What about dried? What about prepared foods? Well, there's this incredible amount of waste that's happening at a field level. You are a very large-scale consumer of produce, particularly berries. Would you allow us to take a look at your supply chain and let us start to purchase the whole harvest from farmers to support your needs, your fruit needs, through Planet Harvest? And we did that. We started that over a year ago. We're now doing all of Chobani's strawberries. So this translates to tens of millions of cups of yogurt and fruit drinks.
Delicious yogurt.
We're extending that into other SKUs, blackberries, stone fruit. And we're working with large-scale grocers and food service companies and brands to do the same and really look at their supply chain and see how we can reduce the amount of waste, support farmers, and help the environment. So we decided to really focus on the larger companies so that we can drive the needle, move volume, and make an impact for the farmers. This would have been zero revenue for them that now is becoming quite meaningful.
And you could do that. Why for-profit? This is a for-profit venture?
So initially, actually, it was going to be a non-for-profit. And how Hamdi and I were connected is when I was in government during the first administration, I started the Farmers to Family Food Box program during COVID because all of a sudden the supply chains were disrupted and you had all of these farmers with no market to deliver their perishable goods into. So I became very close with farmers and what was happening on a farm level. And Hamdi called me after I left government and was telling me that that program had impacted many of his dairy farmers and how he appreciated what we were doing and wanted to see if there was a way we could do something in the private sector. We ended up doing just some great charitable work in communities where he has factories in Idaho and upstate New York around the holidays, which was amazing. But it really started for me a broader conversation. And initially I said, you know what, why don't we just buy this excess and get it to food banks? And I thought that to really do the volume, to make it a functional private sector business, and it has the ability, you can actually impact a lot more change. And ultimately, we're doing the philanthropy, and I continue to give back in the form of feeding those in need with this nutritious food. But I think we can really catalyze structural change to how the whole harvest is valued by consumers of product and hopefully people. And that Planet Harvest logo will come to mean something in terms of supporting smart agriculture.
Yeah, you don't need to sell for profit because you can go to scale, I think.
Exactly.
It just works better that way.
And I think Hamdi's, I'm so appreciative to him because he really gave us a huge shot. He said, okay, well, the problem is clear, even though it's not something that's known to most people about the amount of waste that's happening. But he really gave us a lot of latitude and gave us some huge volume numbers. We started with strawberries. We spent a lot of time together in a field with farmers, multi-generations, saying that this was, life-changing for them in terms of somebody coming and buying this whole harvest and then being able to do generational planning and investing.